Welcome back. It's just gone 7:30 on a Thursday. John Giles is with us. Good evening, John.
Evening, Nathan.
How impressed were you with Manchester City last night?
Sorry, Nathan.
How impressed were you with Manchester City's performance?
Excellent. I think they're back to the very best that we've seen over the years, Nathan. Everybody working hard when they didn't have the ball, using it particularly well, taking their chances. They totally outplayed Arsenal. Totally outplayed them.
Kevin De Bruyne got 2 goals, and you've often spoken about him as a midfielder, maybe not been a traditional midfielder because of how high he plays. Like last night, it was as high as he's probably ever played, just right off Erling Haaland. Is that his best position? Is that where you get the most out of him?
I think so. I don't think he's a scheme or midfielder, Nathan. He's an all-round player that if you give him that free role, which obviously Guardiola does, he is capable of getting spectacular goals. And making goals. I think he's made more goals for Haaland than anybody else since Haaland has come to the club. But he's well able to score goals himself, and he took his goals brilliantly last night, no doubt about that. And funny enough, Haaland was the maker last night. So there's a good combination there. I think especially when De Bruyne is in the mood, he can be a bit moody, Nathan, in my opinion. But certainly when he's up for it, like he was last night, then he's very, very dangerous for the opposition.
You mentioned Haaland's assists. He obviously eventually got his goal right at the very end. There were questions at the start of the season, and there was all sorts of statistics about how few touches he would have over the course of a game, despite the fact he was scoring the goal. It does feel in these big occasions he knows how to involve himself in a game.
Well, I think it's up to the people around him a lot to do it, Nathan. I mean, there was a spell there where he was isolated, or on many occasions, in my opinion, City were playing it too much around the middle of the field. There's sometimes when you got somebody like him, he was making runs, but you wouldn't notice it because it wasn't being delivered. Whereas City are back to their best now, and obviously getting the ball to him in the positions that he needs, like any striker does. When you're in a striker like Haaland, you're dependent on the people around you. And like certainly last night he was getting the service. I think in recent games he's been getting more service. City have had a brilliant 2 or 3 weeks in all the cups, going back to the European Championships. To the Champions League. So, all strikers are dependent on the service they get. And I think at one spell there, he wasn't getting the service that he should have been. Whereas now, in the last couple of matches with City, I think the City are really, really back to the best in the run-in, as they have been for a few seasons. And he can only get more goals. And I think De Bruyne will get more goals. They were really up for it last night. When they hadn't got the ball, Nathan, they were brilliant. They were getting it back. They didn't give Arsenal a look in, really.
Was there anything Arsenal could have done?
I don't think so. I think the players that they have in, the players at the back, they have a few weaklings, in my opinion, Nathan. From the centre back, well, Xhaka, I think, is when it comes to these crunch matches, if you have a weakness, it's shown up, and Xhaka's a weakness, I think. Gabriel is a weakness, and the other lad at centre half has just come in. Yeah, definite weakness. But City didn't give them a look in. They got at them any time they had the ball, which is the ideal way of playing football. You give the opposition no room whatsoever, and they did that. It was a really, really top class display. I mean, they've had a great run in the last few weeks, Nathan. City, like in the other competitions, they've had a great run. They won 4-1 in the Champions League against Bayern Munich, 3-0 easily in the FA Cup. They've done really, really well in all competitions.
Yeah.
But they needed it last night, as we know. This was a 6-pointer, and they certainly did what needed to be done, and they're in the driving seat now.
Yeah. They are still 2 points behind Arsenal, but with 2 games in hand. They've 7 games left to go. It's impossible to see them not winning it.
Well, they'd be. I mean, a few weeks ago, actually, I fancied Arsenal to do it because I didn't think City were playing all that well, and they were. But City have definitely got back to their best when they haven't gotten the ball, winning it back, and then scoring the goals like they did last night. I mean, they totally outplayed Arsenal. They didn't give them a sniff. So I'd say they would certainly be favourites now to do it. And they have done it before, Nathan, in different seasons, as we know. You know, that the run-in games. They're brilliant at that. But they're certainly up for it, that's for sure.
So they are still on course for a treble, and you've touched the form they're in. Is there any weakness at all? If when Carlo Ancelotti's analysing them for Real Madrid, where do you get at this Manchester City team at the moment?
Well, it's very difficult because they're very good at chasing the ball down from the front. And like there was a spell there earlier in the season. They weren't playing as well as they had done on previous occasions, where they weren't getting after the ball. They weren't putting the players under pressure. I think he's got that back now, as we saw last night, especially when it comes into the big run-in, when they have to do it. I think they're well capable of doing it.
From Arsenal,
I think Nathan, I think one of the big things, one of the huge things in football, two things: good when you have the ball, and very, very good when you don't have the ball. I think there was a spell there they weren't so good as they should be for winning the ball back. But last night was a perfect example. They didn't give Arsenal any room whatsoever. And I think now there was 6 matches left, and a bit more in all the competitions. But I think they'll be up for all those matches now.
When you look at what Haaland is doing, so he's 49 goals now in all competitions. I was saying earlier that he's got 11 games left to score 11 goals to get to 60. Like when I was growing up, 60 was this Dixie Dean number that we sort of laughed about from a bygone era that no one would ever get near again, that it was something from the 30s. Can you quite believe what you're seeing, considering all the great strikers you've seen down the years, that this guy might get to that sort of total?
It wouldn't surprise me, Nathan. What he's capable of doing is incredible, And he showed last night he's a real footballer, because in terms of supplying De Bruyne with the passes or the moves, whatever was needed to be done. Most strikers or score goals laid on for them, and that's their job. But this fella's shown that he can actually play as the striker who is capable of creating goals for fellow players. There's no doubt about that. No, he's a real footballer. I mean, mostly with strikers over the years, you could say, yeah, they're great goal scorers. You don't see much of them, but they score goals. But I think this fella's shown now that he can make goals as well. No doubt about it. I mean, he's such a big lad, as we know, Nathan, but he's so well balanced, quick. And he's like a little fella, with his balance. I've never seen anybody like him before. I've seen great strikers. Jimmy Greaves was different. Dennis Law was different in my time, and they were great strikers. But this fella has probably more than any of them in terms of his height, his heading abilities. He's quick, and he's a team player. He doesn't get the huff if he doesn't get the ball. He's a real team player. You can see him getting on with the rest of the lads. There's nothing starry about him in any way. So he's a real McCoy.
He probably missed more chances last night than he's missed in the entirety of the season, and the head didn't drop. He was still there deep into injury time waiting for his chance.
Oh, definitely, Nathan. I mean, the chances he had, he sort of fluffed them a bit, which is most unlike him. But there was no head going down. There was no blaming anybody else. He did it the other way and helped De Bruyne get his stuff. So he obviously was annoyed with himself. You could see when he missed the chances that he did, because he didn't get a clean hit at it. But it didn't stop him. And it didn't stop him making goals.
So from an Arsenal point of view, 3 points from their last 4 matches. Have they bottled it?
Well, I don't think Arteta has. His comments before the match and after the match were that we're going to go for that. I don't think they've faulted it. It's just when it gets into this particular time in it, you have to. I think the weak players show up, and I think that I've mentioned like 3 players there from last night, Nathan. Especially Xhaka. I've never rated Xhaka. I mean, he made a big mess at Liverpool a couple of weeks ago. I think with lads like that, the centre half the same. When it gets to these crucial matches, the character comes out, and I don't think they're good characters. They don't want to be fighting everybody. I just think it's difficult when you get into the run in, like we have. You got Holding. Holding is I know he's not in the team when everybody's fit, but he's a definite weakness. He's a big weakness, Holding. And you got Xhaka, Gabriel. Gabriel wanted to fight with everybody last night. So did Xhaka. And from my experience, anyway, when you get into the way City are at the moment, and Arsenal, 6 minutes to go, everybody all dependent, very, very, very much so, and everybody pulling together. I think the weak players in that team show up, and I think Arsenal have 2 or 3 of them.
Not much better across North London. There's a lot going on in the Premier League at the moment. Tottenham are going to be playing this evening against Manchester United, but 5-0 down after 20 minutes against Newcastle. You've kind of seen that too often. Could you believe what you were seeing from Spurs?
I wasn't that surprised, Nathan, to be honest. I think once they're in the position they're in, and Conte is gone, and they haven't even got a new manager, I think a lot depends on the owner or the top man. I can't think of his name at the moment.
Daniel Levy.
Daniel Levy. He's made the mess of it. There's no doubt about that. Getting the players in, obviously, the manager wouldn't have left if everything had been going okay. I think Conte did the best he could with the players that he had at his disposal. Not the same amount of money, like the amount of money that Man United paid out, and particularly Chelsea. Like Conte didn't have that. I think he just got fed up with it. And Daniel Levy, and it's totally dreadful for a big club like Spurs. And even the players now are apparently paying out to the supporters.
Yeah. Did you ever do that?
No.
Give the money back.
Sorry?
Give the money back.
No, never in a position that you had to pay the supporters for letting them down. I mean, I think if they're going to pay the supporters for letting them down, then I think Daniel Levy should be paying them down. I think he's done more damage than anybody else to the club. I've no doubt, but I've never known a club to pay the supporters, Nathan, because they played so badly. And the players are they seem to be the ones that's going to pay it. But it won't appease the supporters.
No.
No way. They're not interested in the money going to Newcastle to be humiliated like that. It's not money they're after. They're paying money to see their favourite team and their favourite players give everything they have. But it's a total mess. There's no doubt. Spurs have been a mess for the last few years, Nathan. And Daniel Levy is, in my opinion, is responsible for a great deal of that.
Surely the players have to take a huge amount of responsibility, though, as well, individually. Like, is that sort of performance not just completely unprofessional?
It is unprofessional, and of course the players have to take some responsibility for it. Of course they are. But in my experience in football, Nathan, when things have happened, like they've happened at Spurs, the whole morale goes, the spirit goes. They don't know. Footballers need leadership, and the manager is usually the one that gives the leadership, and that's what happens with the great managers. I mean, you're talking about like Pep with City now at the moment, coming up with the goods every year, nearly every year that he's there, and coming up at the right time in a big match like that. That's leadership. And in my experience with players, you get 16 players, Nathan, and sometimes it's more, right? Everybody will have an opinion of what we should be doing. And that's what happens in a group. And that's why you have a manager in who unites all that and says, well, no, you're having that. This is what you have to do. And the players obey that. But once the manager goes, every player has an idea of what we should be doing. And it's usually people who look, a lot of players in teams are looking after their own ends, Nathan. They say, I think this is wrong. It's usually about themselves. Centre half not getting enough cover. Midfield players are not. People are not getting it. I've seen it. I played in a couple of sides where if and when it goes bad, it really goes bad, and it's everybody then is in it for themselves. So that's why you have team spirit. What's team spirit, Nathan? It's everybody pulling together, but it's the manager leading them. Because I've seen it played in teams where you got strong personalities, and it's about them. But the top managers don't allow that to happen. The manager says, "This is what we want to do. This is what I want you to do." And I've seen players saying, "Well, I'm not sure about that." The manager says, "Well, I'll tell you, I'm sure about it, and this is what I want you to do."
Just before,
I haven't had a manager. I mean, the fellow that was in doing it is never been a manager, I don't think. No. And that's what happens. It collapses. That whole spirit collapses. And Spurs haven't had a manager since Conte has left, and that's a while now.
Yeah. Just before we let you go, it's obviously incredibly tight still at the bottom, and tonight's another important evening in that relegation scrap. Felt like a bit of a missed opportunity for Leeds on Tuesday night.
Tuesday they were terrible.
Leicester, yeah,
they were terrible. And they got in front. But where they were worse, they were beaten by Fulham in the previous match, and I thought they were worse against that. But I'd be worried about Leeds. I definitely would be worried about Leeds. And then the crowd are onto the manager now. I think they're not onto the players yet, but I think that might be too far away. They're in, I'd say, big trouble, Nathan.
All right, John, we'll talk to you next Thursday. Great stuff as always.
Thanks, Nathan.
John Giles with us every Thursday evening at 7:30 on